One of my favorite games growing up was Madden 2005. I have a lot of memories of that game, and just the franchise in general. The soundtrack, specifically in 2005, helped me get into music, especially punk rock. I also used to play that game a lot with my dad. Madden was always a go-to game outside of, playing the run-of-the-mill games like Call of Duty. We would play franchise mode and create players named after us, the dogs, and others just for fun. Madden used to be fun back in those days because of all the extra features they had, and the gameplay was not so bad either, even for those times. But there were some other features that really just enhanced the experience, and unfortunately, many of these features have disappeared over the years, and the gameplay, well, that's gone downhill as well. Madden 2005 had a lot of little features that just seemed to enhance the overall experience and feeling of the game, and back then it seemed like EA really cared about the actual quality of the product. The game used to have mini camp and training camp. These were basically extra game modes that allowed you to train and learn the different moves and button combinations, and it was also cool to just sit there and chill, run through all the drills, and listen to the great soundtrack. You used to be able to create your own fans, and you'd be able to create and customize a few of them that would pop up during the game during big moments. Your fans would celebrate if you scored a touchdown or won the game, and they would also be mad and disappointed if you lost. You could customize them in a lot of cool ways too. For example, you could have one fan with this fat bare belly just sticking out and having face paint all over him. You could customize them in other ways, such as holding a foam finger or maybe wearing something goofy on their heads. The referees used to throw flags on the field. You could actually see the penalty flag fly up in the air during that play, or even if you went back and checked out the replay. You don't even get to see the referees anymore. Back in the day, they used to show up on the field while the play was happening. Now they only pop up when they're making a penalty call or challenging something or stopping play for whatever reason. Even the pregame and postgame cutscenes were cool too. They weren't the most dynamic. It didn't change every single time. There weren't, hundreds of different versions of warm-ups and postgame celebrations, but nothing ever glitched out, and it all looked pretty authentic. If you won the Super Bowl in older Madden games, the celebration would be awesome on the field. They're holding the trophy, they're celebrating together. The other team is sitting on the bench with their heads down, in disappointment. Confetti was flying, they're celebrating with the trophy on stage. And heck, they'd even show you afterwards a newspaper image of the team at the White House with Obama back in the day. Back in 2005, Madden was not the only football game out there. NFL 2K5 was another great game that had quality gameplay and content, and perhaps the coolest part of that game was their Sports Center content. They actually had ESPN personalities like Chris Berman, Trey Wingo, Mel Kiper, and Suzy Kolber. They would appear in the broadcasts and do different things, host pregame and postgame shows, show scores and video highlights, and talk about stats. It would be all put together like an actual ESPN TV broadcast, and that's something that Madden never really had, at least to that standard. Lately, they've been trying to throw up scores from around the league, and they chop up highlights from your game, but they never really went above and beyond like the Sports Center version in 2K5. One cool thing Madden did used to have was a cool media section called Storyline Central. You would be able to browse a newspaper. These articles would recap games, injuries, and talk about other storylines from around the league with the different teams and other players. Then you would hear the Tony Bruno Show. Bruno was an actual sports radio host. His show would feature segments interviewing players, fans, and commenting on games and other storylines happening throughout the season. At times you could tell it was, scripted and whatnot, but the fact that they added something like that was a really cool experience to franchise mode. Back in the early days of Madden, we were graced with legendary commentators too, like John Madden and Al Michaels. Their broadcasts always sounded official and not always repetitive and out of place like the commentators of today. Honestly, I think I could go on and on about the things Madden lacks today. I just remember Madden having cheerleaders at halftime that would dance, and then they would also dance on the sidelines in between quarters and possession changes between the two teams. When a player got injured, a graphic would show up explaining the injury. Madden games in the 90s had a funny injury feature where when a player would get hurt, an ambulance would drive on the field and run over any players in their way as they drove to the injured player. Madden also used to include career-ending injuries. Now that's one I'm glad they don't have anymore. I can live without that. I had that a couple of times where I was like, oh my god, I would have to quit the game and restart and completely play whatever week I was in franchise mode because I don't want my quarterback or my running back, or my favorite player back in the day was Brian Urlacher. I don't want Urlacher to have a career-ending injury off of some random tackle that he made. I'm just disappointed that EA has seemed to have gotten lazy over time, because nowadays there are tons of other issues, like players that weren't on the injury report before a game will randomly be hurt and out for the game and on the injury report once you start the game when you pause it and go to the injury list to see, who's out for the game. Or one thing that aggravates me in the most recent games is sometimes my running back will just disappear in the middle of the game and then he just never returns. Doesn't say he got injured, he doesn't pop up on the injury report. It's like the aliens abducted him or something. In 2018, Madden started using the Frostbite engine. The game does look the best it has for the most part, honestly, so I'll give them that, but it's also come with other issues. Animations for tackling, jumping, catching, all started to become janky and worse than ever. The engine somehow caused more laziness too. Fans began to look generic. Players' heads are missing in the locker rooms when you're looking at their stats or when you're, upgrading them or whatever. Have you seen the snow in the modern games too? It looks like someone just squirted Elmer's glue all over the field. It looks disgusting. It's not realistic. It's not looking good at all. And honestly, when you're playing in a snow game and you're trying to pass the ball down the field and look at their wide receivers running 20, 30 yards out, you can't even see. You better hope your team's not wearing white jerseys, because forget it, you cannot see. Can't tell you how many times I throw interceptions during snow games when my team's wearing white. They blend in with the Elmer's glue effect. Now, to EA's credit, recently they've been trying to add some of these features back in and improve them. Specifically here, I'm focusing on franchise mode. However, I feel like it's a little too late. It's nice to see some features being added in the franchise mode, which is what I've always played, and I don't really care about playing multiplayer. I don't care about, being in the superstar mode or anything like that. I want to be able to run my own team, essentially. But there's still a lot to improve on. There's been improvements to scouting, drafting, and free agency, and that's nice to see, but just because they added different scouting elements, well, when it comes time to draft, after spending the entire season scouting players and monitoring their different stats and whatnot, their attributes, I get to draft day, and when I go to draft them, I can't really see, I really don't know for sure, is this quarterback, what's he going to be? Does it look like he's going to be an overall 70? Is he going to be an 80? Or is he going to be a 50? And honestly, a lot of times, outside of your first round draft pick, a lot of guys are below 70. So it's really tough to draft a quality player that's not going to take you 2 to 3 seasons to, start leveling up and improving and developing him. There's some realism there with developing players, but it sucks when I have no idea who I'm drafting, even after spending tedious amount of time in between games throughout the season, picking who to draft, who to focus on, me keeping mental notes of, okay, if I need a middle linebacker, I'm looking at these two guys, I'm hoping I find out their tackling ability, their overall attributes by the end of the season. And they do mock drafts and everything, but again, at the end of the day, when it comes draft time, I have nothing that indicates to me this guy's going to be around the overall 70 to 75 range. The scouting stuff I do unlock is the guy's injury. What's his grade for that? Okay, wow, A for injury. He's not going to get hurt that often. Great. But is he even going to play for me? Or is he going to be on the second or third string on the depth chart and only playing when somebody gets hurt? So yeah, things like that still need to be improved on, but hopefully the quality improves soon. And perhaps what could help improve the game a lot quicker would be a little competition. However, sadly, back in 2020, the NFL and EA renewed their exclusivity deal, which means that EA is the only company allowed to make an authentic NFL simulation game. And that's really unfortunate, because my biggest issue with EA is that they seem to focus more on Ultimate Team and other online experiences. And I get it, gamers today, most of them are all connected online, wanting to talk and play together. I know NBA 2K has a great online community with playing games and different game modes and things like that, pick up basketball and stuff in the neighborhood. But the overall gameplay of Madden is still lacking at times, and there's still old core modes like franchise mode that a lot of people still play. And even streamers on Twitch, a lot of people play Ultimate Team, a lot of people play franchise mode. Madden, like many other games in the industry, has fallen victim to the live service model, and it's a shame. A future Madden game to be great does not necessarily have to have a radio show or a newspaper or cheerleaders in it again, but elements like that would make the game more enjoyable, on top of providing good quality content and having animations and the correct rules in the game and things like that. That would obviously be important too, but adding these old elements in again would make the game more enjoyable, and overall I think it would bring back some of the older fans that have lost their love for the game over the years. So I'm just wondering, are there any other older Madden fans out there that feel the same way or are still playing today? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and of course be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Also, you can find me on Twitter and TikTok at analyzethis_YT. Thanks for checking out the video, everybody, and take care.